Based on the latest government spending and revenue trends, the Working Group on Long-Term Fiscal Planning says Hong Kong could see a structural deficit in about 7 years' time. As Joao da Silva reports, the Working Group is suggesting that the government set up a new savings fund.
It's not a matter of how, but a matter of when. In the near future, Hong Kong will likely see a structural deficit, according to a report by the Working Group on Long-Term Fiscal Planning.
In the long run, given an aging population, when the pressure on spending would further increase, and as our economy turns into a mature economy, the fiscal pressure will mount.
The group set up by Financial Secretary John Tsang starts from the assumption that as Hong Kong's economy matures, GDP growth would stay at the current 3.5% per year until 2021 and then gradually decelerate to 2.5% a year between 2026 and 2041. And it arrives at the conclusion that within the same time frame, while government revenue would rise by only 53%, government spending in healthcare, education and other sectors would rise by 1.16 times. In the worst-case scenario, Hong Kong would see a structural deficit in just 7 years. Its fiscal reserves would be depleted by the end of the next decade, and the city would have to finance itself through borrowing. And that is without taking into account any future government policies such as the construction of additional public housing or the establishment of free pre-primary school education. That is why the group of experts is urging the government to improve fiscal discipline by, for example, keeping public expenditure at or around 20% of GDP. They also propose setting up a savings scheme by freezing the existing land fund and creating a future fund, a measure already mentioned by the Financial Secretary in last week's budget address.
It's just a savings vehicle, because savings as well could be considered equivalent to a fiscal tool of spending less. It's exactly the same. Spend less, save money. We're not saying it's a cure, such it would just buy us some time when times get tough.
Still, the working group emphasised that Hong Kong's fiscal situation is far better than Japan's, that of other European countries. The group pointed out that Hong Kong will run a budget surplus in the coming years and that the government is sitting on large fiscal reserves. Joao da Silva, TVB News.